somehow most developers that I know, including myself, do not get along very well with networking, specifically with IP addresses and networking and everything that goes out there. Whenever a networking guy starts talking, it's like foreign language that developers most of us, including myself, just don't get nothing that they talk about. So I decided to put an end to this and to start a few sessions for myself and for you about networking for developers. So in the first session, we are going to go through IP addresses. The first thing that we need to know about IP addresses is this amazing fact that any IP address is composed out of two parts. I mean, logically, of course, it's just numbers, and we human beings implant on it and the computers that it's composed out of two parts. But for all means and purposes, it's composed out of two parts. Did you know this? Every IP address is composed out of two parts. The first part, the left part, and is the network address. And the right part is the host address. So if you have an address like 192.168.0.0, then it's very possible that the 192.168.0 is the network address. And the last 0 or 1 or 2 is the host address. I'm not sure we can have a 0 at the end, but the last number is after the dot on the right side is the host address. So this is an amazing fact number 1. Now that we know this, now we have a whole world of how to split the address in between the host and the network. So we have class A, we have class B, we have class C, and this is like profiles of splitting the IP address into multiple parts. If you tell a network guy class B, he would know, okay, the network address is 172.16, and the last dot 0.0 would be the host addresses. So we have 16K networks and 4K or something like this IP addresses. And if you tell a networking guy it's a class A, okay, then he knows that we are dealing with 10.0.0.0, where the 10 is the address of the network, and last 0.0.0 is the addresses of the IP. So we have very few networks because it's only the first 10. So it's 126 networks and 60 million IP addresses. And if you tell a networking guy we have a class C, then he knows immediately that it's going to be 192.168.0.0, and the last 0 is going to be the host. So we have only 254 IP addresses because some addresses are reserved, and 2 million networks. So we move from class A with small networks numbers and high IP addresses into class B with medium network number and high number of IP addresses into class C with low number of IP addresses. And for each such class and for each such IP addresses, we denote with 255 whenever we want 11111 on the mask. The mask is basically just 11111 saying what part of the IP address mask can be masked to be the network address, and what part the 255 would be masked as network address. So the ones are allowing the network address, and if you put a 0, it's the IP address. Okay, great. So we already know that every IP address is network and host, and we know in general what classes A, B, and C are. What else is there to know about the IP addresses? There are a few reserved IP addresses, so 10.0.0.0, 10.255.55.55, 172.16.0.0, 100 up to 172.32.255. You know these IP addresses, they are reserved. Okay, the next thing is CIDR. You must have heard of it. This is the classless infer domain routing. So before we talked about class A 10.0.0.0 and class B and class C IP addresses, but we can have classless IP addresses. Everything here is talking about how to split the IP in between the host and the network and some reserved IP addresses. So in the class A, class B, class C, we have a set strict rules specifying how we split the network and the IP addresses. In the classless, we want to be more dynamic. So we mark it with a slash. So slash 24 would say the first 24 bits are the network, slash 16 would mean the first 16 bits are the network, and slash 20 would say we are breaking in the middle. This is the classless, the IDR. We are breaking in the middle, and we have a custom number of bits, which is slash 20, so we have 20 bits to the network part. And this, my friends, was a brief overview to networking and IP addresses for software developers.